Hello and welcome to Investment Insight. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. Now, let's break down what's happening in the markets today in a clear and simple way.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to get into this one because, for the last decade, the tech industry has been selling us all this very specific, very shiny fantasy.
Right, the whole robotaxi thing.
Exactly. I mean, we were basically promised that by now you'd just tap an app on your phone and this sleek, driverless pod would glide up to your curb and, whisk you away to dinner.
Yeah, which obviously hasn't quite happened on a mass scale yet.
No, not at all. But while everyone was distracted by that whole Silicon Valley consumer dream, the actual artificial intelligence revolution kind of just snuck in through the back door.
Okay, so where is it actually happening then?
Well, according to recent analysis, the real tangible profit being made right now in autonomous driving is happening in, honestly, the most boring sector imaginable. Yeah. Commercial logistics. I mean, we're talking about delivery vans and massive 80,000-pound freight trucks just running routes in the middle of the night.
Man, that's such a jarring disconnect from what we see in the news, right?
Yeah.
Because we constantly see these viral videos of consumer robotaxis getting confused in intersections or blocking traffic.
Yeah, totally.
But the data is showing that the real money is quietly being made moving freight. So if you're a beginner investor trying to figure out where the AI market is actually heading, it sounds like we shouldn't really care about who has the coolest passenger demo.
Right,
It's
exactly.
more about, who is fundamentally rewriting the economics of everyday business operations.
That is the exact core of this entire shift. I mean, trucks are
Mm.
beating taxis to the finish line because they are solving a math problem, not a human emotion problem.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so today we're going to look at these massive operations already running on highways in Texas and even urban centers out in the Middle East. And then we'll lay out a really simple framework so you can evaluate these investments yourself without getting, trapped by the whole tech hype cycle.
I love that. Let's start by unpacking that math problem you mentioned. Because to understand where the self-driving industry is going, we kind of have to look at why that original robotaxi dream is struggling so hard.
Oh, for sure.
When I try to picture a robotaxi navigating a busy downtown street, I just think of, well, it's like trying to push a shopping cart through a crowded holiday market.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right, you have kids darting out, people just stopping randomly to look at their phones, changing weather, and just massive liability if you bump into a pedestrian.
Oh, massive. It's a nightmare for the software.
Yeah. But a commercial truck on a set highway route feels way more like a train on a track. But, I mean, is this purely about the route being simpler? Or is there some deeper financial incentive driving this pivot over to trucks?
Well, the simplified route is definitely a huge technical advantage, but the financial incentive is what actually drives the industry. It all comes down to who is buying the service.
Okay, break that down for us.
So, robotaxis have to convince everyday consumers to trust a machine with their families. And consumers are, we're emotional, we're unpredictable, and we demand this flawless, magical experience.
Yeah, if it spills my coffee, I'm leaving a one-star review.
Exactly. But commercial trucks, they're purchased by fleet managers and logistics companies, and those buyers, they only care about one single metric.
Which is?
TCO, total cost of ownership.
Ah, okay. So they're looking at the entire life cycle cost, like the purchase price, the maintenance, the insurance, the fuel, and obviously the labor, and just comparing the robot against the human.
Precisely that. And honestly, the comparison isn't even close once you factor in human limitations.
Because of the driving hours.
Yeah. I mean, for incredibly valid safety reasons, human truck drivers are heavily regulated. Here in the United States, the commercial driver is generally capped at 11 hours of driving per day.
Right. Because they get fatigue, they need to eat, they need to sleep.
Exactly. But an autonomous truck system, it has zero biological limits. It can run for up to 20 hours a day, literally only stopping for diesel and routine mechanical checks.
Wow. So you are effectively doubling the productivity of a single vehicle right there.
Basically, yeah. A logistics company doesn't need to buy 2 trucks and hire 2 drivers to cover a 24-hour route anymore. They just buy one autonomous truck.
That's a huge financial breakthrough. And it's not like these vehicles are trying to find some random new residential address every 10 minutes, right?
No, not at all. They operate on highly predictable, repetitive loops. We're talking about moving pallets from a massive regional warehouse to a retail store over and over, or running a constant loop between a seaport and a rail yard. It's not a consumer novelty. It is a piece of industrial automation equipment. It's really no different than a robotic arm on a factory assembly line.
Okay, so if maximizing that running time on these set routes is the main goal, let's look at how companies are actually pulling this off on real highways today.
Let's do it.
Because according to the research, there's a major player making huge waves in the long-haul space right now called KargoBot.
Yeah, KargoBot is fascinating.
Right, and they are backed by the ride-hailing giant Didi over in China. And the data shows they have already moved 1.2 billion ton-kilometers of freight.
Which is just a staggering amount of cargo.
It really is. But the research also notes their method, which I found super interesting. They use something called hybrid intelligent platooning.
Yes.
And when I read how this works, it honestly reminded me of a mother duck leading a line of baby ducklings across a pond.
I love that visual. It's so accurate.
Because you have a human driver in the lead truck,
Right, right.
and then the autonomous trucks just follow behind it. But isn't that kind of cheating the whole definition of self-driving?
Well, to a tech purist, sure, it might look like a compromise. But if you're an investor or a business owner, this hybrid approach is actually a masterclass in risk management.
Okay, well, walk us through how a platoon actually functions mechanically. Because if a human in that lead truck slams on the brakes, how do the robotic trucks right behind it not just smash into the back of the trailer?
Right, so KargoBot utilizes this one leading three model. You have the lead truck with a human driver, followed closely by three fully autonomous trucks.
Okay.
And they don't just rely on cameras to see the brake lights of the truck ahead. They use V2V, which stands for vehicle-to-vehicle communication.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, it acts like an invisible electronic tow bar. So when the human driver even touches the brake pedal, a wireless signal is sent instantly to the trailing trucks.
Wow.
And they begin braking in milliseconds, like long before a human brain could even process a red brake light flashing.
So they are basically moving as a single synchronized train, just without the physical metal couplings.
Exactly. And KargoBot currently has over 400 of these trucks operating in northern and northwestern China. They also just secured over $100 million in Series B funding.
And for a beginner investor listening, Series B usually means a company has completely moved past the experimental phase, right? Like they're raising money specifically to scale up their market reach.
Spot on.
So what makes this mother duck model so attractive to those big investors?
It drastically lowers both the technological risk and the regulatory risk because, the hardest part of autonomous driving is what they call the edge cases.
Edge cases.
Yeah, those weird, unpredictable things that happen on the road, like a really confusing construction zone or some erratic driver swerving into your lane unexpectedly.
Right, the stuff that confuses the computer.
Exactly. So by keeping one human in that lead truck, KargoBot lets the human handle all the complex, messy decision-making.
Oh, that makes sense.
And then the trailing trucks just mimic the safe path that the human has already cleared. So you are turning 4 paid human drivers into 1 paid human driver.
Right.
Yeah, you're capturing massive cost savings today, right now, without having to wait 10 years for the software to become absolutely 100% perfect.
Which totally bridges the gap between science fiction and actual current revenue.
Exactly. And the data also mentions they're partnering with a company called Horizon Robotics to mass produce the computing hardware for this.
Horizon Robotics, okay, what do they do?
They specialize in edge AI chips. And to understand edge AI, imagine you need to make a split-second decision. Traditional cloud computing is like calling a friend on a walkie-talkie, asking them what to do, and waiting for them to answer.
Which takes way too long if you're driving on a highway.
Right. That lag is deadly in a moving vehicle. So edge AI chips are essentially mini supercomputers built directly into the truck itself. They process massive amounts of sensor data instantly, right there on the vehicle.
Got it. So by partnering to mass produce these chips, KargoBot is driving down their hardware costs, which makes that total cost of ownership we discussed earlier even more attractive to the buyers.
Exactly. It's all about making the numbers work.
Okay, so platooning makes perfect sense on wide-open, long-haul highways in China. But you obviously cannot drag a platoon of 4 massive semi-trucks through a dense, complicated city downtown.
No, definitely not.
So if the goal is completely removing human labor to save money, how are companies handling the chaos of urban density?
Well, they do it by targeting the jobs that human beings despise the most.
Which are?
The research highlights this company called Neolix, and they build smaller mid-mile and last-mile delivery vans. And they've basically built an incredibly profitable business model entirely out of the graveyard shift.
taking on that super monotonous, soul-crushing task of moving groceries from a centralized warehouse to a local neighborhood store at like 3 in the morning.
Exactly. Think about the human element of a 3.0 a.m. delivery route. Drivers get fatigued, they lose focus, and the turnover rates for those overnight shifts are just incredibly high for logistics companies.
Plus, you have to pay them a premium to work those hours.
Right. But an autonomous delivery van, it doesn't get bored. It performs with the exact same precision at 3 in the morning as it does at 3 in the afternoon.
And the streets are basically empty at night.
That's the key. At night, the streets are largely empty, which removes all those unpredictable variables. The pedestrians, the cyclists, the random traffic jams. That's the stuff that makes urban driving so difficult for AI in the first place.
Okay, so the sources show they are getting serious traction with this graveyard shift strategy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, Neolix was one of the first to get public road testing approval in Cyberjaya, Malaysia, right?
Yep.
And they are the first company to secure a commercial license for this in Abu Dhabi for 2025. And their stated goal is to have 10,000 driverless vehicles operating in the United Arab Emirates by the end of 2026.
Deploying 10,000 vehicles is a massive, massive scale-up. However, operating in global urban environments introduces this really critical risk factor that a lot of everyday investors just completely overlook.
Because it has nothing to do with the software or the sensors,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. It's entirely external.
You're talking about the geopolitical reality.
Right.
Because the research noted that Neolix actually had to suspend its daily driverless operations in Abu Dhabi recently. And it wasn't a tech failure at all.
No, it wasn't. The suspension was caused by regional instabilities stemming from the U.S.-Israel-Iran conflict.
Wow.
And this is just a vital lesson for anyone looking to invest in autonomous technology anywhere in the world. These vehicles do not operate in a vacuum.
Right. They need infrastructure.
Incredibly complex local infrastructure. So during a regional conflict, local governments might jam GPS signals just to confuse enemy drones, or they might prioritize the cellular networks for military use.
And if a self-driving van loses its high-precision GPS or its connection to the local control center,
It cannot function safely. It just has to stop.
so geopolitics literally parked the robots.
Literally parked them.
It is a stark reminder that you can write the best code in the world, but as the physical environment or the airspace above it becomes unstable, your revenue stops instantly.
Exactly. Autonomous logistics require predictable public safety and stable infrastructure. So when you're evaluating these companies, you have to look at the political stability of the regions where they actually operate.
That makes total sense. And I guess that brings us back stateside. We've looked at platooning in China and night shift vans in the Middle East. Let's examine how this economic shift is playing out right here in the United States.
It's a very different landscape here.
Yeah, because the regulations, the litigation culture, and just the roads themselves are entirely different. But according to recent analysis, American companies are deeply entrenched in this space right now.
Very much so.
Yeah, Gaddix secured $600 million in contract revenue for fully driverless B2B routes by early 2026. And PepsiCo is currently running 35 driverless trucks in Arizona just to haul Frito-Lay products and Doritos to Walmart distribution centers.
I always laugh at that because moving bags of chips with advanced artificial intelligence is just the perfect representation of the industry's reality right now.
Right.
Like, it isn't glamorous at all, but it is highly lucrative.
But here is where the data presents a really fascinating contradiction to me.
Oh!
Yeah. If a truck is just driving in a relatively straight line on a wide-open Texas highway to deliver chips, why does the CEO of Aurora, which is a major American self-driving company, why does he state that highway driving is significantly harder than city driving?
It sounds backwards, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Because in an urban environment, you have pedestrians, stoplights, cross-traffic. A Texas highway seems so much simpler.
To understand the CEO's perspective, we really have to look at the terrifying physics of heavy freight.
Okay, the physics.
Right. So Aurora currently operates 5 fully autonomous trucks on major Texas corridors, like that huge route between Dallas and Houston.
Yep.
And they recently crossed 100,000 miles driven without a human in the cab, which is huge. But you have to remember, a fully loaded 18-wheeler can weigh up to 80,000 pounds.
80,000 pounds. That is, I mean, that's the equivalent of trying to stop a moving building.
It really
Yeah.
is. So when you are moving 80,000 pounds of kinetic energy at 70 miles per hour down a highway, the physical stopping distance required is immense.
How far are we talking?
It can take the length of 2 full football fields to bring that truck to a complete safe stop.
2 football fields.
Yeah. So a small urban robotaxi moving at 25 miles per hour, it only needs to process the environment a few dozen feet ahead to brake safely. But an autonomous truck at highway speeds requires sensors that can see, identify, and react to objects hundreds of yards down the road.
So the system has to be able to spot, like a blown tire or a stopped car, or just a piece of random debris in pitch darkness.
Right.
And it has to process what that object is and trigger the braking sequence long before a human driver would even realize something was wrong.
Exactly. And that extreme forward visibility requires advanced LiDAR sensors, which basically shoot out millions of laser pulses every second to build this highly detailed 3D map of the environment.
Yep.
And it requires those edge AI supercomputers we mentioned earlier to process that 3D map instantly. So the technological hurdle isn't dodging a pedestrian, it's sheer processing speed and sheer distance.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. And in the United States, I imagine the stakes for getting this wrong are monumentally high.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if a small delivery van bumps a curb downtown, it's just a minor insurance claim, right?
Yeah.
But if an 80,000-pound truck causes a catastrophic crash at 70 miles per hour.
The consequences are devastating. I mean, a single major incident could destroy a company's valuation literally overnight. The U.S. has a highly aggressive litigation environment.
For sure.
And furthermore, there is significant pushback from organized labor unions who view this technology as a direct threat to millions of trucking jobs.
Right, which is a huge conversation right now. Especially, under the current Trump administration, there's a massive focus on protecting American jobs in domestic industries.
Exactly. So unions have a very loud voice in this environment. And if a self-driving company causes a high-profile accident, it gives opponents the exact ammunition they need to lobby lawmakers and effectively regulate the technology out of existence.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so that is exactly why Aurora's CEO views the highway as the ultimate proving ground. The software cannot be just mostly safe. It has to be flawless.
Right. Okay, so with this whole global landscape in mind, we've got KargoBot managing risk with platoons in China, Neolix navigating urban nights and geopolitics in the Middle East, and Getek and Aurora wrestling with highway physics and U.S. litigation.
A lot to take in.
It really is. So how does an everyday beginner investor make sense of this without just losing their shirt? Because we've seen heavily hyped self-driving companies like Too Simple and Embark promise the world and eventually collapse.
Oh, yeah, many have tried and failed.
I tend to view this entire industry like the gold rush. When everyone rushes to California to dig for gold, a lot of miners just go bankrupt. The people who consistently build wealth are the ones selling the pickaxes, the shovels, and the denim jeans. So how do we apply that pickaxe strategy here?
Well, the research outlines a really clear 3-part value chain framework to help investors navigate all this noise and find those pickaxes.
Okay, break down the first part of that framework for us.
So the first step is analyzing short-term indicators. You basically must ignore all the highly produced, flashy technology videos on social media.
The cool demos.
Right. Ignore the demos. Look for boring, concrete business metrics instead.
Like what?
Are they generating actual contract revenue? Gaddic's $600 million backlog is a perfect example of real market validation.
Okay.
Look at their on-time delivery rates, and most importantly, look for miles driven without a human safety driver in the vehicle, like Aurora's 100,000 miles.
That makes sense.
Yeah, if a company is only showing you computer simulations or restricted test tracks, keep your money in your pocket. You want to look for real rubber-moving, real freight.
Verify the revenue and verify the miles.
Got it.
Yeah.
So what is the second part of the framework?
This is your gold rush analogy in action.
Yeah.
The medium-term play requires looking beyond the companies operating the truck fleets and focusing on the supply chain itself.
The pickaxes.
Yes. Look at the OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers, who actually bend the metal and build the heavy truck chassis.
Okay.
And look at the component manufacturers. Ask yourself, who is building the LiDAR laser sensors? Who is manufacturing those specialized edge AI chips? Who is designing the advanced redundant braking systems?
Right, because it honestly doesn't matter if Aurora, Getek, or KargoBot ultimately wins the market share war. Whichever software company comes out on top, they all have to buy those same sensors and chips to build their trucks.
Exactly. The hardware suppliers win either way.
That's incredibly smart.
Yeah, that is the safest long-term bet in a highly volatile emerging industry like this. as the sector scales up, hardware production is just going to explode.
Okay, so what is the third and final piece of the investment playbook here? The third piece is a bit more qualitative, but it will absolutely dictate which companies survive the decade. Investors must evaluate whether a company has secured a social license to operate.
A social license.
Yeah.
Okay, define that in this
A
context.
social license basically means society at large. So the public, the regulators, and the workforce, they all accept your presence.
Okay.
Because you can possess the most advanced artificial intelligence on Earth, but if local communities are petitioning their mayors because they are terrified of giant driverless trucks moving through their neighborhoods.
Or if massive labor unions blockade your distribution centers to protest the job losses.
Right, exactly. If that happens, your investment will go to zero.
Wow.
So you really must seek out companies that are actively collaborating with regulators, prioritizing flawless safety above everything, and proving their economic value to the community rather than just, trying to force tech disruption down the public's throat.
So what is the core takeaway for you, the listener, trying to make sense of all this data today?
I think it's that the artificial intelligence revolution that is going to fundamentally transform the physical economy is happening really quietly.
Very quietly.
It is taking place at 3 a.m., moving pallets of household goods, industrial freight, and literal bags of Doritos long before a luxury robotaxi ever chauffeurs you to the movies. The massive, boring logistical backbone of the world is where the real breakthrough is actually happening.
Automating the mundane is what always drives massive economic leaks. And I want to leave you with one final thought to kind of explore on your own, expanding on everything we've covered today.
Okay, let's hear it.
If autonomous trucks can operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without the cost or the biological limits of human drivers, the fundamental cost of transporting goods could plummet to near zero.
Which means distance just becomes incredibly cheap.
Exactly. Consider the ripple effect of cheap distance. Right now, our cities are built around how far a human driver can comfortably travel in a single shift.
Right. Massive distribution warehouses currently sit on the outskirts of incredibly expensive urban real estate just so they can remain close to the consumer base.
So they can do next-day delivery.
Exactly. But if the truck never needs to sleep, the warehouse no longer needs to be close. We could see these mega warehouses migrate hundreds of miles away into deep rural areas where land is just dirt cheap.
Oh, wow. I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah, this single technological shift in trucking could completely rewrite commercial real estate values, hollow out industrial zones in major cities, and completely reshape local rural economies. You might start by investing in a robotics company, but you will end up witnessing a geographic restructuring of the entire supply chain.
That is wild to think about. That completely flips the script.
Yeah.
You aren't just betting on a truck. You are betting on the reshaping of the American map. Well, that is all the time we have for today's deep dive into the logistics revolution. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button.